In a world where trust is often placed in the hands of those we admire most, there exists a dark reality lurking beneath the surface. Statistics show that nearly 1 in 4 children are faced with some form of sexual abuse before the age of 18, a figure that resonates painfully within communities we believe to be safe havens. Today we bring you a story that profoundly shakes the foundation of faith and community. Imagine a vibrant church filled with laughter, joy, and the echoes of heartfelt worship. The pastor stands at the pulpit, a figure of hope and guidance, inspiring his congregation with powerful sermons that uplift spirits and strengthen bonds. But what happens when that very person, who seems to embody the ideals of compassion and integrity, becomes the source of unimaginable betrayal? Today we delve into a gripping story that raises profound questions about faith, trust, and morality. It's a narrative that reminds us that even the most trusted leaders can hide a darker side. Our story centers on a beloved pastor, known for his charisma and ability to connect with his flock, who stands accused of a heartbreaking crime, an act of betrayal that shatters the lives of a family and a community. As we piece together this shocking tale, you'll hear the accounts of those directly affected by this tragedy. You'll witness the unraveling of trust and the questioning of beliefs that once felt so solid. The gripping investigation exposes the layers of denial, confusion, and ultimately the fight for justice. Stay with us as we unfold this chilling story, a story that compels us to confront our understanding of faith and the people we place our trust in. The investigation is just beginning, and the truth will emerge in ways no one could have anticipated. Let's begin by introducing the man at the center of this heart-wrenching story. The pastor. Pastor Michael Thompson, a name that many in the community came to respect and admire, was not just a religious leader. He was a pillar of the neighborhood. Having grown up in a nearby town, he felt a calling early in life to serve others. With a theology degree and years of experience, he dedicated himself to his congregation with genuine fervor. He was known for his warmth, always greeting members with a smile, ensuring that no one ever felt alone in times of sorrow or struggle. His sermons were filled with compassion and encouragement, touching the lives of young and old alike. Pastor Thompson built deep connections within his flock, offering counseling to troubled families and helping organize community service projects. His commitment to uplifting those around him made him a key figure in many lives, earning him their unquestioning trust and affection. Nestled in the heart of a close-knit neighborhood, the church served as a sanctuary for its members, embodying a spirit of fellowship and faith. The vibrant stained glass windows cast colorful patterns on the wooden pews, while soft hymns floated in the air, creating an atmosphere that welcomed all who sought solace. The congregation, composed of families from various backgrounds, reflected the diversity of the community, ranging from young parents to elderly couples, all unified in their shared beliefs. Together they filled the church every Sunday, celebrating moments of joy, grief, and everything in between. Among those who flocked to the church was a young boy named Alex. At just 14 years old, Alex was polite and bright, possessing a curiosity that often led him to ask deep questions about life and spirituality. He came from a loving family. His parents were active members of the congregation who had instilled in him the values of kindness, respect, and faith. They often emphasized the importance of community, which made the church feel like an extended family to him. Alex attended youth group meetings and looked up to figures like Pastor Thompson, viewing him as a mentor who exemplified everything a leader should be. With a passion for life, Alex participated in various church events, always eager to lend a hand, whether it was setting up for a charity event or helping with the worship service. His cheerful demeanor and eagerness to connect with others made him endearing to everyone around him. Yet beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect community lay an unsettling reality. As Alex navigated his teenage years, like many young individuals, he was beginning to explore his own identity. The church was meant to be a safe haven, a place where he could grow in his beliefs and find guidance. Little did he know that the very person he trusted most would betray that safety. On that fateful Sunday, the church was alive with the sounds of laughter and chatter as families gathered for their weekly rituals of worship. The light streamed through the stained glass windows, filling the sanctuary with colorful hues that danced across the wooden pews. The melody of lively hymns echoed through the air, weaving an atmosphere of hope and community. The congregation was optimistic, embracing the familiar comfort of their faith. As Pastor Thompson approached the pulpit, his commanding presence silenced the room. His voice rang with warmth and conviction as he shared stories of faith and resilience, inspiring his congregation to reflect on their lives and relationships. Alex sat among his friends, soaking in the uplifting words, participating with smiles and nods, feeling empowered by the spirit of togetherness. The service was a time of shared beliefs and deep connections, reinforcing the foundation of trust that had long been established within these walls. After the sermon concluded, the church was filled with the sounds of voices mingling in conversation. People exchanged greetings and laughter intermingled with the lingering notes of the closing hymn. As the congregation slowly filed out, Alex lingered for a moment, captivated by a sense of contentment. He loved being part of this community where everyone looked out for one another. Pastor Thompson, bustling about, was engaged in discussions, offering comfort to those who approached him for prayer or guidance. The pastor's ability to connect made him a beloved figure, and Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration as he observed the heartfelt interactions. It was in these moments that Pastor Thompson appeared most genuine, embodying the essence of his role within the church. But as the last of the congregation left, the atmosphere shifted. Alex found himself caught up in the moment, holding a plate of leftover snacks from the church gathering, while others departed. The pastor noticed him standing alone and waved him over with a smile, encouraging him to come and chat. Feeling a mix of eagerness and nervousness, Alex approached the pastor, ready to share his thoughts about the service. "Great job today, Pastor," Alex said, his face beaming with the enthusiasm that was characteristic of his youthful spirit. "Thank you, Alex. I always appreciate your support," Pastor Thompson replied, his voice warm and inviting. "You're really growing into a thoughtful young man. Have you thought more about discussing your thoughts on faith?" In that moment, the pastor's attention felt like a privilege, and Alex nodded, excited to engage in deeper conversation. They discussed the sermon, the Bible, and the importance of community support. The conversation flowed naturally, with the pastor sharing wisdom and life lessons that resonated with Alex. But as they spoke, an unsettling feeling began to creep in, a sense that the conversation was straying from the pure mentorship Alex had always perceived. As the church grew quieter, the pastor suggested going to his office for a bit more privacy. "Why don't we chat a little more inside? I have some resources I'd like to share with you," he offered. His voice was calm and his demeanor encouraging. Feeling honored to be invited into the pastor's office, Alex eagerly agreed. They entered the small, book-lined space where the pastor often prepared his sermons. The door clicked shut, and for a brief moment, Alex felt a wave of excitement. To be seen and valued by someone he greatly admired was a rush that filled him with pride. However, the mood shifted once they were alone. The pastor approached the desk, but rather than discussing resources or faith, Alex noticed something in Pastor Thompson's gaze, something that made him uneasy. It was a fleeting moment, yet it was enough to trigger an instinctual warning deep within him. What's important in life, Alex, is understanding our inner struggles. We all need guidance sometimes, Pastor Thompson said, taking a step closer. His tone, once warm and inviting, now carried an intensity that caused Alex to hesitate. As the minutes passed, the atmosphere thickened with tension. The pastor was now standing just a little too close, and Alex could sense that the conversation was shifting. The warmth that had once enveloped their exchange turned into an uncomfortable silence, leaving Alex feeling cornered. Then came the moment of betrayal. What began as an innocent mentorship morphed into something unimaginable. The pastor leaned in, crossing a line that shattered Alex's sense of safety. The reality of what was happening began to dawn on him, turning the once sacred space into a place of fear and confusion. Panic flooded Alex's mind as he realized the gravity of the situation. Here was the person he had looked up to, someone who had shaped his understanding of faith and trust, now standing as the very embodiment of betrayal. In that moment, everything Alex thought he knew about the church, faith, and leadership crumbled around him. Time seemed to slow as Alex's heart began to race, adrenaline coursing through his veins. All the warmth and comfort that the church had provided had suddenly turned cold. The pastor's face, once a symbol of safety, now loomed in a way that was unrecognizable, tilting the balance of their relationship into a nightmare. Alex, it's important to understand that we can share more than just faith. Relationships are built on trust and understanding, Pastor Thompson said, leaning closer, his voice low and persuasive. It felt as though the walls of the office were closing in around Alex, the reality of his vulnerability weighing heavily on him. This was a community where he had always felt supported, a place where he could explore his beliefs without fear. Now, suddenly, that very trust was being manipulated in a way he could have never imagined. The sacred bond between pastor and congregant was being shattered before his eyes. Struggling to find the words, Alex's mind raced with confusion and disbelief. "Pastor, I think we should go back to the others," he stammered, the innocence of his voice puncturing through the tense atmosphere, desperately trying to redirect the conversation. "But Alex," the pastor insisted, taking another step forward, "you have so much potential. I just want to help you understand your path." There was a manipulation underneath his words that sent shivers down Alex's spine. The boy fought the urge to recoil, instinctively backing away as the reality of the situation became unmistakable. In his young mind, Alex fought to rationalize what was happening. He had always been taught to respect authority figures, to trust in the guidance of those who were meant to lead, yet here was this very leader compromising everything he represented. The pain of betrayal surged, but in that moment, fear paralyzed him, leaving him mostly immobilized. Suddenly the office door briefly rattled from the other side as a few members of the congregation, running late to the next church event, unexpectedly began to enter. The moment of tension broke, allowing a silence where Pastor Thompson froze, his posture shifting slightly as he quickly smoothed his shirt and composed himself. "Looks like we'll have to continue this conversation another time," he said, feigning a light-hearted laugh, making it seem as if nothing had transpired. The pastor's cheerful demeanor snapped back into place as if he had never strayed from his role as a beacon of faith and support. The door swung open and in walked several parishioners, greeting the pastor with laughs and smiles, completely unaware of the dark moment that had just unfolded. Alex felt an overwhelming rush of relief, yet the feeling of dread lingered heavily in the air, the contrast between the laughter and his internal chaos striking him hard. He forced a smile, blending back into the crowd, grappling with the internal storm of confusion, fear, and betrayal he had just experienced. As the congregation began organizing for the next event, Alex tried to focus on the banter around him, attempting to shake off the unsettling feeling. Yet the shadows of doubt began to cloud his future, staining his perception of not just Pastor Thompson, but the entire community he had trusted. In the days that followed, chaos erupted inside Alex's mind. He was left to wrestle with his feelings, torn between respect for a man he had admired and the horrifying reality of what had almost transpired. He withdrew from his friends and family, feeling unable to share the truth. He could not comprehend how to articulate the experience or what it meant for his relationship with the church, his family, and his own identity. Outside, life proceeded as usual within the church community. The congregation rallied around Pastor Thompson, blissfully unaware of the turmoil distilling beneath the surface. He continued to lead, his charisma intact, while Alex sat quietly in the pews, grappling with shadows of fear and self-doubt. Yet within this heartbreaking silence, the narrative was not just about Alex's struggle. His experience, intimate and painful, was part of a greater narrative unfolding within the congregation. The foundation of trust that everyone had relied on was shaking, though no one yet knew how deep the cracks ran or how far-reaching the consequences would ultimately be. As Alex moved through the motions of attending church, he was a young boy trapped between the expectations of faith and the reality of betrayal. He longed for solace but found only a growing fear of confession and a loss of innocence. The moment of confrontation would come, and as more whispers spread through the community, it would become impossible to ignore the dark truths hidden behind the cover-up of charisma and trust. As time passed, the heavy burden of secrecy pressed down on Alex, creating fractures in his once vibrant spirit. He grappled silently with the weight of the betrayal while attending church services, feeling increasingly isolated from the community that had been his life's cornerstone. The disguise of normalcy began to wear thin, and he longed for someone to confide in, someone who could understand the turmoil churning within him. The breakthrough came unexpectedly one afternoon, when Alex found himself in conversation with Jamie, a close friend from the youth group. Jamie had always been there for Alex, and their friendship was built on trust and shared experiences. During a casual chat while walking home from school, the conversation shifted to the church and the events of the past few weeks. "Hey Alex, I've noticed you've been a bit off lately. Is everything all right?" Jamie asked, concern etched across her face. In that moment, the floodgates opened. With Jamie's gentle encouragement, Alex recounted the events of that fateful day, his voice shaky as he shared the betrayal he experienced at the hands of someone he revered. The words spilled out in a rush, frantic yet desperate for understanding. As he spoke, he felt both vulnerable and relieved, finally unburdening himself of the weight he had carried in silence. Jamie listened intently, her eyes widening in shock as the gravity of Alex's revelation sank in. "Alex, that's really serious. We need to tell someone about this. You shouldn't have to go through this alone," she urged, her voice trembling with a mixture of empathy and determination. Thus began the process of bringing the truth to light. With Jamie by his side, Alex approached a trusted teacher at school, Ms. Carter, who had always shown compassion towards her students. Sitting across from her in a quiet corner of the classroom, Alex felt the tension in his chest ease slightly as he shared his story. The teacher's reaction was immediate. Her expression shifted from concern to alarm, and she became a crucial ally in guiding Alex through the next steps. Ms. Carter reported the incident to the authorities, initiating a formal investigation. It wasn't long before law enforcement was informed, and an officer reached out to Alex and his family. They explained the necessity of a thorough examination of the situation, ensuring that Alex received the care and support he needed while addressing the intricate complexities of the case. As the investigation began, the community was rocked by an unexpected revelation. The pastor, whom many trusted implicitly, faced allegations that left congregants in disbelief. The news began to spread, igniting a whirlwind of emotions that swept through the pews of the church. Some congregants struggled to process the information, clinging to their loyalty to Pastor Thompson. "It can't be true. He has always been there for us," they said, grappling with a profound sense of disbelief. Others, however, began piecing together past interactions and unexplained behaviors, their trust dissolving into a cloud of confusion and disappointment. Familiar faces, usually so warm and inviting, now wore expressions of doubt and fear. "How could something like this happen in our church? We thought we were safe here," was a common refrain, echoing through hushed conversations in the hallways and during coffee hour. The emotional toll of the uncertainty was evident as congregants debated the pastor's innocence or guilt, creating divisions and tension. Church services shifted from a celebratory atmosphere to one laden with apprehension and whispered questions. Each sermon felt heavier as Pastor Thompson continued to express his innocence to the congregation, insisting that the allegations were false and the result of a misunderstanding or malicious intent. Yet, his calm demeanor only intensified the responses from the community, a blend of outrage, concern, and frustration. As the investigation unfolded, police officers conducted interviews with Alex, his family, and numerous church members. They began gathering evidence, exploring the timeline of events, and examining records. The search for truth became paramount as investigators sought to piece together the dynamics of power, trust, and tragedy. Alex's family stood firm in supporting him, reassuring him that sharing his story was a powerful step. With every interview, Alex felt a mixture of fear and empowerment. He needed to be heard, and the growing visibility of the situation allowed him to reclaim both his voice and his story. Throughout this process, outside organizations began to express their support for Alex, offering resources for healing and counseling. It became clear that this case resonated beyond the local community, sparking conversations about trust, abuse, and accountability within places of worship. Awareness groups reached out, emphasizing the importance of believing survivors and encouraging open dialogues about such sensitive topics. The investigation began to attract media attention, placing further pressure on the church community. Reports of the allegations against Pastor Thompson spread, leading to a mix of solidarity and discontent among congregants, as well as a broader public dialogue about the responsibility of religious institutions to protect their members, particularly children. News cameras began to swarm the church, capturing moments of frustration and sorrow as families grappled with the reality of the situation. Members of the congregation found themselves thrust into a spotlight, forced to confront the unthinkable. Parents began asking hard questions of one another. How could this happen? Were our children truly safe? As the police investigation continued, officers reached out to other individuals who had been involved with the church. They sought to understand if there were any previous allegations against Pastor Thompson, any signs that had been overlooked or dismissed. The inquiries revealed a mixed tapestry of experiences. Some church members spoke of long-standing bonds built on trust, while others mentioned odd moments or troubling incidents that in hindsight were inappropriate and concerning. As more people came forward, the collective outrage began to rise. It was heartbreaking to hear stories from others who, like Alex, felt betrayed and confused. The church, once a sanctuary of faith, began to feel like a battleground, families divided, friendships strained, and innocence lost. Pastor Thompson, aware of the brewing storm, maintained his innocence. He publicly proclaimed his commitment to clearing his name, presenting himself as a devoted pastor wrongfully accused. However, with each passing day, as evidence mounted and stories emerged, the congregation found it increasingly difficult to align the man they idolized with the narrative of betrayal unraveling before them. Alex, witnessing these events unfold from the sidelines, felt a surge of conflicting emotions. He wanted justice, but he also felt a deep sadness for the community that had given him so much. They had provided him with a foundation of faith and belonging, but now he felt alienated, wondering if he could ever return to the church environment he once cherished. As the investigation progressed, detectives began laying out the evidence collected during their inquiries. They spoke with parents, teachers, and classmates, meticulously piecing together a timeline of interactions between Pastor Thompson and Alex. Witnesses recounted observations that on the surface had seemed innocent, but in light of recent events took on a much darker hue. The community was divided. Some members defended Pastor Thompson passionately, while others began to voice their support for Alex, expressing solidarity with anyone who could have been harmed. There was a growing realization that this was not just Alex's story, it was emblematic of a larger issue. The conversations within families and between friends began to shape a new narrative centered on accountability, truth, and the importance of speaking out against abuse. As the police delved deeper, they initiated contact with child advocacy groups, ensuring that they were providing comprehensive support for Alex. Resources for therapy and counseling were made available, focusing on helping him navigate the complexities of his experience. This support offered Alex a glimmer of hope and a framework for healing, even as the darkness loomed in the background. With the investigation illuminating a devastating truth, it became evident that Pastor Thompson's influence extended beyond just a single individual. Shadows began to emerge, highlighting the need for systematic changes in the way religious institutions protect their congregants and address allegations of abuse. Alex's bravery in coming forward began to inspire others. More individuals began to share their own experiences, their voices merging into a chorus demanding change. The community reacted with a mixture of grief and resolve as they began to address the cultural silence surrounding difficult topics. This collective response represented a profound shift in the conversation surrounding faith, trust, and the imperative of safeguarding the youth within their communities. With each passing week, the community oscillated between moments of contemplation and fervent discussion, torn between their faith and the reality that was unfolding. As the investigation neared its conclusion, more questions than answers remained. What would happen next? Would justice be served? And could the fabric of trust ever be rewoven from the threads of betrayal? The coming days would test the bonds of the community, revealing the strength and resilience of those who chose to stand up and confront the darkness that had encroached upon their sanctuary. As the investigation into Pastor Thompson intensified, the shockwaves rippled through the community, reverberating with the stark realization that their lives would never be the same. The police compiled the evidence and testimonies they had gathered, leading to formal charges being filed against the pastor. He was accused of multiple counts of sexual abuse against minors, with Alex's case serving as a pivotal cornerstone in the legal proceedings. As the news of the charges broke, the atmosphere within the church shifted dramatically. The congregation, which had once rallied behind Pastor Thompson, now faced an impending reality. Their beloved leader was in serious legal trouble. For many, it was a devastating betrayal. For others, it was a calling to seek justice. The first court appearance was set, and the community held its breath, a mixture of anger, disbelief, and a desperate hope for resolution. On the day of the initial court appearance, the courtroom was filled with concerned members of the community, along with journalists and advocates standing in support of Alex. It was a moment that would place the community's turmoil on public display. Pastor Thompson entered the courtroom, flanked by his legal counsel, looking like a shadow of the man they once admired. As the proceedings began, the emotional weight of the moment settled heavily on those in attendance. The charges were read, and as the details unfolded, gasps and murmurs could be heard. The severity of the accusations painted a bleak portrait of the man who had once been a trusted figure in their lives. His defense argued against the allegations, maintaining his innocence and portraying him as a victim of a tragic misunderstanding. But, for many, those words felt hollow in light of Alex's bravery in coming forward. As the legal process continued, Alex found himself grappling with the emotional fallout of the ordeal. He and his family attended therapy sessions, seeking help to navigate the often turbulent waters of trauma. The experience had profoundly impacted Alex, leaving him with a mix of feelings, rage, fear, and confusion, but also a budding sense of empowerment. The therapy sessions provided a safe space for Alex to express his emotions, and his therapist worked closely with him to reframe his understanding of the event. They focused on rebuilding his sense of self-worth and resilience, emphasizing that he was not to blame for what happened. His parents, who had initially felt helpless, became his steadfast supporters, attending sessions with him and joining support groups for families affected by similar experiences. The collective healing journey was vital for Alex's recovery. Importantly, he learned to navigate feelings of isolation and fear, realizing that he was not alone in his struggle. Such support allowed him to gain the strength to speak out more, reinforcing his belief in the necessity of confronting truths, no matter how painful they may be. Meanwhile, the church was faced with monumental decisions as they tried to move forward. Facing immense pressure from the community, church leaders recognized the urgent need for transparency and change. A series of meetings took place, led by the church board and community advocates, to address the allegations and their implications comprehensively. Members of the congregation participated in open forums discussing how they could support abuse prevention within the church. Conversations shifted toward the importance of safeguarding against future incidents, emphasizing the need for heightened awareness and sensitivity. Training programs on recognizing abuse signs were introduced, along with policies requiring background checks for all church staff and volunteers. The congregation began to face their own discomfort and pain, and slowly it became evident that healing would be a shared process. Some congregants gathered to create support networks for victims of abuse, ensuring that individuals who had suffered similar experiences had a voice and resources. These efforts began to foster a renewed sense of community, even amid sorrow, as congregants sought to transform their space into one of healing and support. As the community navigated this arduous path, wounds remained. Many wrestled with conflicting emotional allegiances, struggling to reconcile their faith in the institution with the realities of the betrayal they had faced. Questions about the church's past practices resurfaced, encouraging introspection regarding leadership, love, and the inherent responsibility to protect the vulnerable. The legal proceedings dragged on, and with each courtroom appearance, the community witnessed the poignant struggle between mourning the loss of their pastor and seeking justice for those harmed. Alex's bravery in testifying became a beacon of hope, inspiring other victims to step forward. Eventually, as the community rallied behind those seeking justice, the trial culminated in a tense verdict. With the culmination of testimonies and evidence, the courtroom buzzed with anticipation. When the jury announced its decision, the air filled with an inexplicable tension. Pastor Thompson was found guilty on multiple charges of abuse, leading to a sentence that would ensure he was held accountable for his actions. In that moment, relief washed over many in the community, mixed with the deep sorrow of knowing that trust had been shattered. In the wake of the verdict, a sense of bittersweet victory emerged. While justice had been served for Alex and others who came forward, the remnants of betrayal still lingered within the church's walls. The sentencing sent shockwaves through the congregation, marking a turning point in their healing process. For those who supported Alex, the verdict represented hope, an acknowledgement that courage in speaking out could lead to accountability and change. Yet for others, it left them grappling with the complexity of their emotions towards Pastor Thompson, a man who had once been a source of strength and guidance. In the weeks following the trial, the church took significant steps toward rebuilding and reform. Recognizing the need for accountability and change, the church leadership established a committee dedicated to ensuring the safety of all members, particularly youth. They initiated a campaign focused on educating congregants about abuse prevention, bringing in experts to hold workshops on recognizing signs of manipulation and safeguarding minors. Community members began to actively engage in discussions about faith and trust, addressing the societal norms that often silence victims. Groups formed to provide support for those affected by abuse, while also fostering a culture of openness and dialogue. Alex, empowered by his journey, began speaking at these gatherings, encouraging others to share their stories and emphasizing the importance of seeking help and support. As the church turned its focus towards healing, many congregants who had distanced themselves began to re-engage. They found solace in the shared commitment to rebuilding their community on a foundation of awareness, transparency, and care. Although the scars of betrayal remained, the initial steps toward healing felt promising. Alex's journey was far from over. Counseled on various issues related to trauma, he continued to face some difficult days. Nightmares and anxious thoughts occasionally resurfaced, but he remained determined to reclaim his narrative. His relationship with his family grew stronger as they supported each other through the ups and downs of recovery. Counseling sessions became less about the past and more about building a hopeful future, a future where he could thrive, not just survive. Through resilience and support, Alex gradually began to feel the weight of shame and guilt lift. He learned to embrace his identity and passions, redirecting his energy into activities that brought him joy and fulfillment. He found a love for photography, capturing moments of beauty that reflected hope and healing. Each click of the camera served as a reminder of his power to reclaim his narrative and share his truth with the world. As the church community continued to grapple with their collective trauma, a compassionate spirit began to flourish. They reached out to organizations advocating for abuse survivors, forming partnerships to enhance resources and support systems for preventing abuse and fostering healing. While the scars from the past remained etched in their hearts, the community found strength in unity. In time, a memorial service was held in honor of all survivors of abuse, a reminder of the importance of acknowledgement and healing. The service served not just as an occasion for remembrance, but as a demonstration of solidarity, a commitment to protect and uplift one another going forward. Throughout this process, Alex remained a beacon for many in his community. He spoke openly about the power of seeking help and the importance of breaking the silence surrounding abuse. His willingness to share his experience became an inspiration, empowering others to confront their own truths and seek justice. The road to recovery was neither straightforward nor simple. The community's commitment to change required ongoing engagement and determination. Discussions about safeguarding practices continued, addressing the cultural elements of their faith that needed to be nurtured to create a safe environment for all congregants. As the years passed and life attuned to new rhythms, the church became a sanctuary once again, this time with a stronger emphasis on transparency, inclusion, and support for those who had suffered. It transformed into a place where faith could be reconciled with vigilant care, where love thrived alongside accountability. And while echoes of the past would never be forgotten, they began to fade against the backdrop of hope. The community continued to honor those who had been lost and to nurture a cycle of healing through empathy and action. Together they would ensure that their voices were heard, that their stories mattered, and that their community would rise stronger than before. In their journey through darkness, they learned that while betrayal could fracture trust, courage, connection, and determination could ultimately forge a new path, one where faith could thrive without fear, and where every individual could feel safe, respected, and valued. As we bring this story to a close, it's essential to pause and reflect on the profound complexities surrounding trust and betrayal, especially within places where so many seek solace and guidance. This tale of Pastor Thompson and Alex reminds us that faith is a delicate tapestry interwoven with trust. When that trust is broken, the impact reverberates throughout the fabric of the entire community. Many people turn to places of worship for support, guidance, and acceptance. These institutions often hold immense power in shaping the values and beliefs of those within their folds. Yet, as we have witnessed, even these sanctuaries can harbor shadows that threaten their very foundation. The betrayal of trust can lead to a spiral of pain, not just for the individual victim, but for families, communities, and entire congregations. So we ask you, our viewers, how do we navigate these complex dynamics? How do we ensure that places designed for safety and spiritual growth do not become environments where betrayal lurks? The conversations sparked by Alex's experience are critical in creating awareness around the importance of safeguarding young members, fostering open dialogues, and ensuring that every voice is heard and valued. In light of this narrative, we encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you experienced something similar in your community? How did you navigate those challenges? Your insights could help others who may be grappling with their own truths. Together we can create a supportive environment where stories are shared, heard, and validated. If you found this case as compelling and gripping as we did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories that delve into the complexities of humanity. We've got plenty more fascinating cases lined up, each darker and more bewildering than the last. Hit that notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming stories that shine a light on the hidden corners of crime and the individuals affected by it. Join us next time as we explore yet another chilling tale where the truth feels just out of reach and the consequences leave us questioning everything we thought we knew. Together we can unravel these mysteries and give voices to the stories that must be told. If you found this story impactful, consider subscribing to our channel for more narratives that shine a light on important issues. We delve into stories that matter, stories of resilience, justice, and the human experience. Thank you for joining us on this journey today. We hope that Alex's story resonates with you and encourages meaningful conversations within your communities. Remember, every story has the power to ignite change, and together we can foster a world that champions safety, trust, and healing.